folks, if you want to sit down, start making your way in and then sit down, obviously. We're going to now listen to Johannes Landgraf. I hope I pronounced that correctly, on the future of writing
Perfect.
software. Awesome. Big round of applause for Johannes. Come on, people.
Come on. I mean, Hadi, I think you shouldn't have said that there's really good food and cool air in the kitchen. Also to everybody, hello, listening from the kitchen. So my name is Johannes. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of a German startup called Gitpod. By now we are 50 people strong, distributed actually all over the globe, but the core engineering team developed like open source projects, programming languages over the last 15, 20 years, and actually comes from the northern German town of Kiel. So only, there are some people from Kiel apparently here. Other side of Germany. And what we do is we build CDEs. So not IDEs, but CDEs. And a CDE stands for a cloud development environment. And over the next 45 minutes, I want to explain you the concept, the problem we are here to solve, and then also end with a short demo connecting actually Gitpod with JetBrains. The purpose of our company is to, okay, and there's my screensaver. The purpose of the company is to empower developers to be ready to code. And those three words are really important when we are building product. And what we mean by ready to code, it's kind of think about it as a state of mind where all the toil that you are faced as a developer throughout your day is away and you can focus on what you enjoy most, which is being creative and writing code. So it's that point where you really enter flow. Put differently, it's the point where all the yuck hair we have to shave is shaved away and we can be productive. And with Gitpod, we want to get developers into that state. I will zoom now a bit back and actually start with some computer science history. Who knows what that building is? Can share some tips. For example, object-oriented programming was invented there. The desktop paradigm, the mouse, laser printing, and some other interesting things. Yes, Xerox PARC, the Palo Alto Research Center in California. The CTO there around the 90s was called Mark Weiser. And he wrote one of the most referenced paper actually in computer science, which is called The Computer for the 21st Century. And why am I telling you all that? Because when we describe Gitpod, we often refer to it as the world's computer for developers. So the underlying principle, what an optimal computer should be like and inherit, are important when we build product. That paper starts with two sentences. The first sentence is the most profound technologies are those that disappear. They weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life until they become indistinguishable from it. And a good analogy to think about, if we speak about tools or technologies, is something as trivial as a pen. So when you write an essay or you write a love letter to your girlfriend or partner, you don't think about using the pen, you think about what you want to write, right? The pen fully disappears. The same, if you're in your workshop and you want to build whatever you want to build, you're not thinking about the tools you use. They just become helpful servants to you. There was in this paper as well one like a German philosopher, Martin Heidegger, actually coined that term, and he coined it ready to hand, 1920. And that's where ready to code actually comes from. That when you build something, something is ready to hand. You're immediately available to focus and do what you want to do, what the creative spark that you had started within you. When we look at our industry, we are not ready to code. Honestly, we are not. Like, we waste so much time on complex tools and fight with them day in, day out, which actually really limit creativity, which limit collaboration, and which limit flow. And I see people here giggling, and I think that's because everybody knows that. Something is broken, my dev environment doesn't work, the CI build fails. It's just all of that complexity that we accepted somehow as developers. And we believe at Gitpod there must be better ways. There must be better ways to write software and create it with less strain and with less mental overhead. Now, if we think about the ideal computer, what properties should that inherit? And we replace computer here with Gitpod, but you can do it the other way around. So the purpose of Gitpod is to help you do something else. You don't use Gitpod for the means of using Gitpod, right? It becomes a means to an end. Mittel zum Zweck in German. Gitpod becomes that quiet, invisible servant that supports you in whatever it is you want to do, in whatever software it is that you want to write. And I really like that principle, which is the more you can do by intuition, actually the smarter you are. So the less calories you waste on things where you're not productive, the more energy you have for whatever it is that you want to do. And finally, tools we use, they should create calm. They should not stress us. Today, development environments do not create calm. The majority of you knows that meme and shared it in internal Slack channels or somewhere else, different contexts. We believe that development environments are fundamentally broken. They are not automated, they are not controllable, and they continuously break. They are continuously not in sync. They need to be managed, they need to be massaged, they need to be taken care of, which all costs a lot of time. Issues we see when we also speak with our customers are things like time-consuming setups and very costly context switches. So when you're developing on a certain feature branch, a colleague asks you for a pull request. I today learned that JetBrains doesn't have pull requests, but assume you have pull requests. It's tricky to switch that context. Environments drift away within your team. All of us know that works on my machine issue, but also between CI, between prod, and between dev. They should be harmonized in a way, but they are not. They're different. That's where the majority of CI failures also comes from. Development environments today lead to a lack of collaboration within and across projects and teams. If I'm a really good Java developer and work in one team, and the other team actually needs my expertise, it's tricky to fully switch my dev environment and help that team out. It should not be that tricky. Maybe some of you have heard of the concept of inner source, so applying the principles of open source within companies, increasing the flexibility and the fluidity between teams. Modern applications are very large to run on a laptop. I mean, we saw today that JetBrains is 20 gigabytes. Gitpod itself is now 7 gigabytes by now. And with multi-service architectures or microservice architectures, that whole problem becomes even bigger. We have vulnerabilities in our software supply chains. And we need to manage secrets in .env files, which is, quite error prone, to say the least. So there are a lot of problems that we face day in and day out. The question now is, how big are those problems? How many hours do they actually cost us? Our friend Ken Beck, who some of you might know, he was one of the creators of the Agile Manifesto, and came up with extreme programming and test-driven development, and worked a lot with Eric Gamma back in the days as well, and helped to scale organizations such as Facebook and Gusto, engineering-wise. Full disclosure, he's an investor and advisor in Gitpod, but all of you that know Ken Beck you cannot dictate him what he says, a very particular and great person. He wrote an article which is called Taming the Complexity of Development Environments. And in that article, he referenced that he's seen different numbers for just the cost of keeping a development environment working. And he said it's certainly in the tens of % of working time. Even worse to me is, if your development environment is broken and you want to fix it, you try to fix it, you don't really manage to fix it, what you do is you ask the most productive engineer in your team. So the cost is actually exponential because you pull that person out of flow as well. I would be interested if all of you think, I don't have that problem. I'm a 10x developer. This is all bullshit. What he says is not true. So let's run a quick 30-second survey together. You type in either the link at the top or the put your camera out with the QR code. Would like to get a feeling of actually how much time people spend on those issues and what issues are most prevalent and present in your day-to-day. So give this another 15 seconds, and then I will actually pull up a page where we can look at the results together. Ideally, this then helps to customize the demo a bit later on. Okay, I think I will open that in parallel. All right, we already have 3 answers, all developers. Let's give it a bit more. How many folks are there? Maybe we can get to statistical significance, which is n equals 30 here. 13, nice, almost half. Love that. Cool. 23, 7 to go. 24. It's probably the folks in the kitchen that have us out here. Oh, 37, nice, perfect. Okay, let's have a look. Mainly devs have not expected something else. Also some platform and DevOps folks here, and some data engineers as well. Some other people. It's probably the product manager of Gitpod, Lucas, who is sitting there, or our chief of staff, Philip. All right, so what specific issues have folks with development environments, and what do you encounter? Time-consuming environment setups, so both onboarding, but also switching environments, and most prevalent with over 60%, makes total sense. Then we have costly context switches. Yes, agree. I think everybody that works in a branch-based workflow knows that problem. Oftentimes it then leads to very shallow PR reviews, right? So where we just look at text edits and don't compile and build the whole code. Difficulties reproducing issues, dependency management problems, makes, wow, this is like a hell of participation here. Thank you for that. All right, now the interesting one. How many hours per week do you spend managing and troubleshooting development environments? 1 to 4 hours, almost 50% spent 1 to 4 hours per week. So this is a weekly cost. We have some 10x developers who only spend 0 hours on managing their development. Probably it was the people that are not developing. 4 to 10 hours. It heavily depends on your project, your team setup, in general. But we see there is a significant amount of time we waste on this on a weekly basis. So now, how happy are you? How much does the yak shaving of keeping your development environment working impact actually the job satisfaction? That's interesting. So we have more than 75% that rated 3 or lower. So it's important. It just is toil. It's things we want to automate away, and we haven't done that, which is a bit crazy. We know we started with infrastructure as code. We kind of followed with CI/CD. We automated all of that. The last missing piece: development environments not automated. Okay. If we think about what does a perfect development environment look like, how should it behave? How should it be? How should it feel for me? What should the user experience be like? What now follows are really, that's our product North Star at Gitpod. It doesn't mean, and you will see it in the demo, we are not perfect, definitely not. But that's what we strive to be. So, and we call those CDE principles. So, Cloud Development Environment Principles. The first one is development environments should be on demand. They should be instantaneously available for me. When I need one, I get one. The environments don't start, they don't stop, they just exist, they just are. And I can get as many of them as I want. They're not limited in size. If I want to have 5 development environments of a specific Git context, I can get them because they're automated. And with automation, that creation doesn't get costly. I mean, there are cloud costs, so that will show up on the bill. The next principle is equitable. We really believe that CDEs should lower the barrier for software development. And when we speak about equity here, there are a couple of different, actually 3 different contexts you can look at. The first one we already touched on. It should be possible for people to jump between projects, between teams, between repositories. That should not be costly. If we limit that, there is a high hurdle to actually participate in helping out a team. The second thing is we are all working with QA people, with PMs, with designers. There are more people than just developers that take part in creating software or creating projects. If a CD is fully automated, those folks can, with the click of a button, also get a development environment and have access to that. And the third one, and that's a really nice story I want to share here, is the story about a person that's called Asif. So Gitpod, open source, HPL-based source code. We have quite an active community. There are over 6,000-7,000 folks in our Discord server. And when was it now? I think 2 years ago, from one day to the other, a person showed up. His handle was actually Axon, and helped out everywhere, helped out the community, answering questions, helped out answering on our public GitHub issues. So really provided a lot of value, to the extent that I reached out to him and said, hey, I mean, you're doing this all for free. How about you actually come join and work for us? In that first conversation, he told me a story on how he found Gitpod. Asif, so that's his real name, is an 18-year-old person from Bangladesh. He lives in a rural area in Bangladesh. And he found Gitpod because he wanted to learn Rust. His computer just broke down, and as you know, Rust is quite compilation-wise heavy, and you cannot run that on a low-powered machine as easy as that. And his laptop broke down. So what he did is he emulated Linux on his Android phone. He connected his Android phone to his TV, and then he started Gitpod in a browser and worked in a fully cloud-based development environment with the networking and internet speed of a data center. Because you download all the packages and everything in the cloud, not on your local device. That's how he came to Gitpod, and that's how he learned Rust, ultimately. That's what we mean when we speak about equity. The third principle is it needs to be consistent. So it needs to be reproducible, and it needs to be controllable. If I want to go back in time, for example, let's say I'm working in with a client, and they ask me, hey, we have that bug on a version that was, I don't know, it's 2 months old. What happened there? If development environments are automated and version controlled, it's as easy as going back in your Git history, in your commit tree, and opening a development environment at that specific point. They need to fit also your mental state. So the automation that runs ultimately is as what you expect. And the fourth principle is it needs to be extensible. A lot of you might have some experience with what some people call browser-based IDEs. And that's oftentimes playground tools. So, I don't know, you can potentially write some JavaScript in there. It's good for some training cases, but it's very limited in scope. We believe that a CDE should integrate with whatever tool you want to use as a developer, with whatever editing experience you want to use. If it's VS Code, shouldn't say that here. If it's any JetBrains IDE, if it's Vim, if it's Emacs, it doesn't matter. You need to use the tools that you want to use in order to be productive. And it needs to be powerful enough for any use case. So the machine specs and everything should be and scale as the application require. A concept that we, product-wise, and also it was part of our growth, or how you say, go-to-market strategy, is that we had open and Gitpod buttons everywhere. So we started with open source development. So you find a lot of open source projects out there, GitLab and others, that you can start with the click of a button, and the whole environment is for you up and running. But it's not only, you do not only need an environment, a development environment, with your source code management system. It's also in your developer portal. Some of you folks might use Backstage. It's in code search tools. It's in CI tools, actually debugging GitHub Actions or other CI software out there. So wherever you want to have access to a development environment, you should have access to that. And if the demo gods are with me, I will demonstrate how that looks like. If the demo gods are not with me, we will play that video, but let's try the real thing first. So I'm here in GitHub. This is Spring Pet Clinic. Who of you know Spring Pet Clinic? I've seen that already, the Java project. 1, 2. Okay, so it's a Java project. You need Maven, a Spring Boot project in order to run and compile that. Here, I'm on a pull request context. And I mean, I don't write code at the moment, but if I would, the first thing I'm doing as a really good developer is unblocking my colleagues, right? Reducing work in progress first thing in the morning. Now, originally, without Gitpod, this would mean I need to get that whole context, that whole project somehow on my machine, where something is already running. With Gitpod, it becomes as easy as clicking a button. So Gitpod takes that Git context. So what you see here is literally just a prefix of the relevant Git context. It allows me, it populates the relevant context URL, but you can also change that. I can use whatever editor I want to use. In this case, we use IntelliJ IDEA. I can select the specs of the workspace that I want to run. In that case, it's an up to 8-core, 16 gig RAM machine. And I start opening that workspace. Now, if the internet allows me, yes, it does, the environment opens. We cheated now, so, oh God, it timed out. The demo gods are not with me, so we probably need to wait a bit. Just getting a few more things ready. So this is usually when the internet is a bit flaky. I hope. Come on. No. Okay. Oh God. I switched to and probably that's actually a good idea. But my phone only has 1 bar, 2 bars. Let's see. Let me switch to the phone. That will be a bit tricky. Okay. All right. Another try. If that doesn't work, we need to do the pre-recorded demo. Okay, internet seems to be flaky. Let's do that. So same context, same GitHub repository, Spring Pet Clinic. I'm now going to the pull request here and starting that context in Gitpod. I also invite everybody after that, actually try it out yourself. Probably you will have more luck with that. So I'm here on the new workspace page. I can select the various resources that I want. Editors, specs for the workspace. In this case, I'm using the large workspace size. And now it's up and running. I have JetBrains Toolbox installed with Gateway. So that's a JetBrains product that actually allows you to run remote machines. And what you see here is that the whole application opens in a thin client provided by Gateway. The IDE fully runs remotely, and let me stop here. And the whole Spring Boot and the whole web server was already built. So it's already up and running when I click on that button and when the IDE starts. This is because of what we have here lying in the root of the repository, a Gitpod YAML file that allows us to act as a CI server. So to essentially pre-build the environments before a developer wants to start. Literally very similar as a CI server. So if you look at that YAML file, it references at the top a Docker image. You can select that, whatever flavor and whatever image you want to choose. If you don't specify something, we have what we call workspace full. So that's our primary fallback image that has various languages installed. You can define what ports you want to open. In this case, it was the 8080 port that showed the running application. You can define, I should black that out, no VS Code extensions. You can also define VS Code extensions. Same thing for JetBrains. So for plugins that you want to share, that in this case is JPEG. And this file lies at the root of the repository, is version controlled in Git, and thereby allows you and everybody in your team to start on a consistent and reproducible development environment. It's important to mention you can bring your own tools, you can bring your .dot files, you can bring your themes, so customize this to your needs as well. Here we see that here we saw the plugin that was installed. So it runs on localhost 8080. I can change that in the control center here. I see my ports. I can modify them, adjust them. I also have a couple of options to stop a workspace, to open the dashboard and to interact with Gitpod. Can do that as well in the CLI with a GP command. And those environments become, I can open multiple of those. So I can now open the same environment that will open in a separate window on my local machine. The underlying resources here, it's a Docker container, but literally you can use whatever you want to use. Sudo, you can use Docker. So everything that you can use on a Linux machine, you can run here as well. Okay, if we can also control that through the gateway application. And if we go to our product UI, you see the members page here. So I'm under the Gitpod demo org. I can select my members and add my colleagues to that. Then they all have access to the same projects that lie under that organization. And if I go to the workspace page, I see all of my different workspaces that I've used over the past. After 14 days, they're garbage collected, but it's as easy as clicking a button and restarting a workspace, which is all the file system changes and everything, all the work that I did at that specific point in time. Okay, that's, I think, it. I want to open it up now for questions. There is a microphone, I think, somewhere. So yeah. There are two questions, and oh, sorry.
Hello. Okay. Thanks for the demonstration. Overall, having a thin client is nice. I agree. But overall, it comes with the cost of structured tracking as well. So for instance, when you're saying it's a development environment, it's not the deployment environment. You're not getting that, right?
Pardon? It's
not the deployment environment.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it means that whenever I have to run this application in production or I have to ship it in my local deployment environment, I always have to keep track of resources and also different server configurations. They should match the remote development environments. So how do you think that we can tackle this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So here now the internet is working and you see in the background how the JetBrains client will open up. So Gitpod is really everything until you commit. Think about it like conceptually like that. Once you commit, your pipeline kicks in and starts. So that's not a service we provide right now. Having said that, what runs in production is a container in the cloud. What runs in CI is a container in the cloud. What we run as a development environment is a container in the cloud. So ultimately, you're harmonizing the environment way better. You can reuse similar images that you use for CI for dev, and thereby just reduce failures in your pipeline. However, you need to think about Gitpod as something that happens before a commit.
So we had multiple projects where we switched between local environments and like virtual machines for the devs. And one of the pain point always was that the virtual machines were slow, or the connection wasn't stable enough that you type something and it takes a few seconds until you see it on the screen. And so that's why virtual machines are not that popular, I would say.
Yes, so you're talking about VDI infrastructure, I assume. Exactly. So Citrix environments, VMware environments, what banks, financial institutions use, yes.
So would you say this solution has the same weaknesses, or is it not as?
So this underlying here is a container, not a VM. And actually, we see we have large financial institutions as customers, and we see them replacing their VDI infrastructure with something like Gitpod or other CDE solutions. We kind of started a lot of that, but by now you have, JetBrains Space is offering something similar. You have GitHub Code Spaces and others as well. So that's definitely something that we see. I mean, I can show you here, right? So I'm here, if I type htop, and you see that, this is like, it feels like my IDE. So it's high spec. I can search for a Gitpod like YAML file here, open that up, I don't know, interact with it. I can run GP commands. So it's like, I don't know, it feels like local.
Okay, so maybe one follow-up question. You say it feels like local. For example, I have a big application, right? I have a front end, back end, edge server, whatever.
Yeah.
Never difficult to track bug. So I have to start all the applications and run them in parallel. But they all need different environments.
So they are in different repositories then?
For example, different repositories. How easy is it to connect the different Gitpods?
We have something what we call MultiRepo support. So you can think about that. Here you see the Gitpod YAML file that lies in the root at one repository. And there is like a hierarchy of YAML files where you can instrument various like repositories. Went out, but I have a loud voice.
So you want to take the microphone?
Red, green, probably back. Yeah. No worries. But yeah. Huh? Came back. So it's just flaky. Not like Gitpod. So there is configurations that you can use for that. And it's, I think, one of our customers, there's a customer story out the Factorial. They have, I think, more than 150, 160 engineers working day in, day out on Gitpod. They have a very big Docker Compose setup. So multiple services that work together.
Hello, thank you for the nice presentation. Actually, I'm using Gitpod for the code reviews and
nice. You like it?
Yeah, actually, the thing you mentioned, like with the branch switching and checking things like quickly, is really fun to work with it. But I had a question in mind. What is the difference between Gitpod and GitHub code spaces? That I guess these two has some overlap features, or?
both are CDE solutions, cloud development environment. When GitHub CodeSpaces was launched, oh, now I'm back. We sent them actually to their San Francisco office a beautiful cake that you can find under gitpod.io /blog/cake, congratulating them for their launch. Philosophically, they adapted a lot of the concepts that we have pioneered, such as pre-builds. And my personal opinion is, I mean, the more the merrier. It's great that they came out with their product. There are certain product differences as well. You can run Gitpod either on our, what I'm using here, on our multi-tenant service, but you can also run Gitpod in your cloud as a single tenant installation, what we call Gitpod dedicated. So it then runs in your AWS account, fully in your cloud perimeter and behind your firewall. This is not possible with CodeSpaces, for example.
I think we are out of time, but you can find the speaker there. Yeah. So that's it for now.
I mean, for me, it would be okay, but